Well, welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guests are the incredibly funny team behind the dark, nihilistic, sad, and absolutely hilarious new show on Comedy Central, Corporate. We've got creators and stars Jake Weisman, Matt Ingebretson, director-writer Pat Bishop, and co-star as well as hilarious comedian herself, Aparna Nancherla. Before we get started, I just want to let our viewers at home know you can submit a question for our guests using the Submit a Question button right next to the video you're watching. Now, let's take a quick look at the trailer for Corporate and then get started with our guests.
Look at these people. Is everyone at this company clinically depressed?
Everyone here is hanging by a thread. They could snap at any moment.
We want to use you as our tools in this situation.
Yes, think of yourself as tools.
You guys are tools.
The well-being of our employees is at an all-time low.
These were all children once. Happy, innocent children. And now look at them.
Think of yourself as tools.
We're all just trying to fill the void.
The void?
You know, the emptiness that exists inside all of us.
Where are you getting all of that cake from?
You guys are tools.
Question, why do you think it's okay to come into work with your shirt untucked?
Because life is meaningless and nothing we do matters.
Think of yourself as tools. Hey, Matt. I thought you were dead, but turns out you're just sleeping on the toilet.
Just stay back! I'm gonna kill myself!
Richard, we all want to kill ourselves.
They're finally letting you guys fire someone?
You're fired.
Congratulations!
The only way to beat the system is to turn the system against itself.
Are you PowerPoint proficient?
I'm more than proficient. I listed it as a special skill on my resume.
We all know there's no God. But there is a ton of money to be made in his name.
I feel like we're experiencing something really special.
Got him!
Everybody, please welcome Pat, Matt, Aparna, and Jake from Corporate.
Thanks.
Hello.
Thank you.
Guys, I love this show so much. I love nihilistic comedy, and this show is really about how nothing is safe from corporate takeover and raiders, even to sort of small parts of our heart and soul that we try to hide from them. Talk about creating it. Where did it start?
A lot of it started, when I moved to LA, I had a lot of terrible jobs that I kept
No
doing.
big deal, we live in LA. So just, you live in LA.
I live in LA,
Very
just to
important
make
note
that very clear up top.
Shit.
Yeah, LA, so no big deal, but a lot of terrible corporate jobs and like marketing and stuff, and I decided to write a show about how awful it was to work in those places. But yeah, Pat and Jake and I had been making a lot of videos together, and we wanted to make a TV show, and so we pitched this to Comedy Central, and they were nice enough to say yes to it.
How did you pitch it? What was the pitch outside of it's an office comedy, but was it like it's an office comedy where?
Well, the thing is most office comedies are portrayed as like really goofy places to work.
Like
it's
with a goofy
fun.
boss, and there's pranks and stuff.
Yeah,
like
but every job I've ever had, I mean, it just made me want to end my life sooner. You know, I've never had a job that I was like, I want to keep doing this. So I think our point was that no one's happy, everyone's sad. Let's be honest about that. And
we wanted to find the comedy in the darkness of having a terrible job. Yeah.
And somehow the executives at Comedy Central who work under Viacom related to that.
Yeah.
I do wonder about that when I watch the show, because so much about it. I mean, one of the episodes, I don't want to give anything away, but it is about how money is made via corporations in war, and you know, it's played up somewhat in a silly way, but it's actually like a very truthful thing that all of the corporations, whether they are an entertainment corporation or not, have their hands in the pockets of some sort of war machine, whether it be stocks or something else. And you're kind of talking about a very serious thing. I'm wondering, what do the overlords at Viacom think of something like that?
I mean, I think that they're just happy that we're making them money, and it doesn't matter to them how we're doing it at all.
Yeah, that's the thing, they get to win, too,
Yeah.
anyway.
And that's the new corporate world that you're kind of talking about in some way.
Yeah, I think, too, that corporations have already won, and we're all participating in that in some way and contributing to this nightmare system around us.
Also, shout out to AOL.
Shout out to AOL.
Guys,
God bless
I'm sorry.
you.
I'm sorry. It's
yeah.
oath.
AOL.
So please.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the premise of the show is that corporations have already won, and we're living inside of this like terribly contradictory society, and there's no escaping it. And so, what does it feel like to live in that, and what's funny about that?
It's like Doctor Strangelove, like how do you stop worrying and just love the bomb? You know, like the corporations are the new nations. You can't beat them, and we live in an imperialist nation, so let's have fun.
But also, it feels great. I love Amazon Prime. I use it constantly. If Google went away, my life would crumble so quickly. I am so dependent on Google, and they might kill me someday. I'm still worried about that.
You guys show up every morning in the writer's room and just listen to the Ned Beatty speech in Network, and then like start the day.
Pretty much, yeah. Network was a point of reference when we pitched the show. Yeah.
I actually listened to that speech on the way here because I had watched the show, and I was like, oh, I got to remember that speech going into this interview.
Yeah.
Pat, talk about the look of the show and where you crafted that from.
Yeah, well, that was something right from the
You
start.
directed every episode, right?
I did,
Oh,
yes.
Great.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Point out accomplishments here. That's what we do.
That was something that we kind of all shared as a vision right from the start, is that we didn't want it to look like most comedies on TV that are kind of brightly lit and with bright colors so that you want to hang out and have fun with the characters and feel like you're there. We felt like it was necessary to make it feel bad to kind of get across what the characters were going through in the show. So we just kind of, we let it be kind of look dark and kind of have this more dramatic look to it that, you know, people associate with like David Fincher or just dramatic movies and not comedies in general. And I think the way we approach comedy sometimes is that you don't have to sort of play it straight or like treat it like a drama, both in the acting and the kind of look at it, and let the kind of writing and jokes come through that or stand in contrast to that.
How did that affect you guys when you sort of went into editing the pilot? I'm curious, because as you said, most comedies are inviting and bright, and I think even when you want to do something different, you have in the back of your head, you've been taught what a comedy is supposed to look like. Was there ever a moment of hesitation on your part where you were like, oh God, I don't know if this complements the humor as well, or if this needs to be brighter? I mean, I think it works beautifully, but I'm wondering if you had any...
I mean, I think like on one hand, it's like this was the experiment we wanted to make, and the thing that makes the show stand out for better or worse. But at the same time, I think we had to, both in the storytelling as well as visually, find the fun in it and find like there's like in the pilot episode they go on a like tour of all the birthday parties in the building on kind of like a binge of like cake eating. So to try to find the like fun that you can have in a world dominated by corporations where your soul is sucked away.
Yeah, we did. We had control of the project from sort of start to finish in the creative process, and each step along the way, I think we were pulled away from how dark it was. Like even the first cut of the that the editor made had a lot of more bright and fun music in it than we then stripped away and put more dramatic music in. So we just kept doubling down
like,
on this.
Okay, man.
Yeah. I guess so. Whatever you guys want to do. Yeah.
Jay, you had your microphone up a minute ago. Did you want to say something?
I was going to make a quip that had nothing to do with anything. I just need attention
As the time
once in a
passed,
while.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
Don't make the quip.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
the
we
big
wanted the
joke you wanted
darkness
to
to
make?
reflect our souls. So our souls aren't bright, and they're really dark, and that's why we edited the pilot that way.
I noticed, as someone who's watched, the show premieres the 17th, but I've watched a few more episodes after. It gets increasingly darker, I would say, as it progresses. Can you talk about building off of the first episode?
Well, when you're making...
Very, very funny. I hate to
Well,
not
that's the
tell
thing.
this.
It's like, well, it's an interesting thing when people say, your whole life, you're like, wow, you're dark. Your comedy is dark. The way you see things is very dark, and you're like, this is just me. Like, I don't think it's dark. I just wake up and I'm like, everything's bad, But that's fine. Like, that's what life is. And everyone apparently is very happy because I don't know why are you so happy? I look up and I'm
where
like,
do you get off?
North Korea
and
might
can
end
you
us,
give us
and-
some tips on how to be that happy?
what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Like, it's not, people say comedy is dark, and I'm not naive. I understand what darkness is, but also like, no, this is just comedy. Like, you know how the fact that you were born and that's statistically impossible, and you spend your whole life, which is like 5 minutes in the history of time, basically, wanting to die or being afraid you're going to die, and then right before you die, you learn a lesson what you should have done with your life. That's the funniest thing about life.
Yeah.
Like farting is not that funny, but the fact that you're going to die unfulfilled, that is funny.
Yeah.
And so we really tried to dig into that because a job where you're there wasting your life, it's existentially interesting, and we think that's the funniest thing about life. It's not purposely dark. It's just what we think is the funniest thing about life, where I think a lot of other comedies disagree with that. But this is just our point of view. We're all very sad.
Yeah. But I think also it's hopefully cathartic for people to kind of like be honest about the kind of confusion and darkness of adulthood.
Yes.
So much of the show, or so much of what was funny about it for me, wasn't necessarily the individual existential dread of having a job that you don't like, but it is how it is inescapable. The corporation is inescapable no matter what corporation it is, and we are all sort of a victim to it, no matter what our however we want to dignify ourselves or whatever our scruples are, they will be lost.
Yeah, I mean, how do you even, if you go off the grid, let's say, and you have...
The only way that you could have any scruple.
and that's still a reaction to a corporation's reach. So you're still basically living that way because of a corporation. You have no choice anymore.
Also, who wants to go off the grid? Like,
yeah, it's exhausting. There'd be no Amazon Prime.
Internet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aparna, you experience sadness.
Like, oh, yeah.
Oh, your sadness, Aparna, please.
I'm here as sadness expert. No, I think...
In case you're back, Aparna, what should they do with all of this sadness?
She's not on the show. She's
Help us,
another
Aparna.
sad person.
They're like, we need a fourth sad to round it out. I don't know what drew me to the show was just that I think, and the reason I'm friends with like Matt and Jake and Pat is we have a very similar sensibility of like finding comedy out of sort of that existential despair, and I do think the cinematic tone of the show and the like darker elements like that sort of just raises the stakes of then when it's like sillier, it really like takes the air out of it and it hits that much harder. So I think there's like, it's very intentional in the way it's shot and like the fact that it has this like much more sinister tone.
Talk about your character a little bit, Aparna.
Well, my character is Grace. She is in HR, and I think she adds a different element to the show in that she is neither like fully corrupt nor like very like doe-eyed and innocent. She's kind of like exists within the system. She knows it's bad, but she's trying to make the best of that position, and she is kind of friends to Matt and Jake and kind of a third voice in their little narrative. And I think she's also just trying to like function at her job and is probably reflecting the everyman of someone who's just trying to make it through the day and like go home and like binge watch her show, but also like maintain something of a conscience.
What's Grace's show?
Grace's show, I think Grace would
Great British Baking Show?
Yeah. I think that would be a classic Grace. And she would like rewatch episodes.
Yeah, that's right.
She likes. Yeah.
Matt and Jake, talk about your characters. There is I mean, they are different in how they approach their lives and the corporation.
Mm-hmm. Jake is a former idealist, so he grew up like wanting to be punk rock, anti-corporations. He failed spectacularly at that.
He looks like the singer of Counting Crows in the video.
Adam Duritz and Zach De La Rocca had a child that looked kind of like both of them, but was less talented than both of them. And
it was really, you just found a wig that you couldn't resist.
We found a bad wig.
That's right.
You got to see the pilot, guys. You don't really know what we're talking about.
Baseball
but very inside. And so former idealist whose dreams were smashed very young and then has realized that the system will never be defeated, so he just wants to buy in it as much as possible, and he tries to have as little feelings as he can, and just he admires the soulless CEO of the corporation, and he attempts to be like him in his way up, but he's not very good at it. So he's consistently failing in his attempts to be a ruthless CEO.
And Matt is, I think, the most suggestible human being alive and allows himself to be blown in the winds of, like, people telling him what to do and has no real sense of self, and I think represents most Americans. But
he's got a heart of gold.
Yeah, a heart of gold, but it will probably end up doing the worst things of any character in the show because he.
If he found out he had a heart of gold, he would pull it out and try to sell it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, I think that he just is lost and doesn't know who he is, but thinks that he should know who he is and wants to find out, but doesn't know where to look.
What I like about him is that he kind of is still clinging to a kind of individualism that he wants to sell.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to give anything away of where he goes, but I like that he has these like passion projects that he thinks will make him better outside of the corporation. But then as soon as the corporation gives him any kind of like tries to pull him in any way, he dives into the corporation as much as possible.
Yeah, I think he loves things and has ideas of what he wants to do with his life, but doesn't quite understand what is working against him, which is this sort of like American economy and capitalism where it's brutal. And when he was a kid, he probably wanted to be a superhero or a professional basketball player, but didn't think that through enough to like see where that would go or like the limitations on that.
So now he's really into craft beer.
Yeah, so now he's into craft beer, yeah.
I like the idea that if you just thought through being a basketball player, you could achieve it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think he's someone who wants to do great things, but has to continue to chip away at his dreams until his dreams eventually will just be, well, I'll have a beer at the end of the day and watch a TV show, which is what happens to everyone anyway. So, yeah.
That's not a bad end of day, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I will say that whenever we have to describe the show, it doesn't sound funny at all.
Yeah.
But it is funny. It's just really steeped in sort of the failings we all have. Like, you guys know.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's incredibly funny because it's about the contradictions between how we define ourselves or try to define ourselves in the world, how the world we live in defines us.
Yeah.
And I think that's a contradiction. I mean, it's silly to say comedy is one thing, but comedy is always contradictions, right? We think one thing, and then the twist is this. And I think rarely do we actually talk about that particular twist of how we define ourselves, but there's just no way we can exist that way.
Totally.
The CEO, the soulless CEO, is played by Lance Reddick.
Lance Reddick
from The Wire. He's amazing.
Incredible.
What's it like working with him?
He's the best. He's like definitely the most talented person we've ever met, and he's like an incredible actor that makes Jake and I feel ashamed of our own acting abilities constantly.
Yeah.
And on screen he's the most intense, like gravitas-y.
Gravitas.
He's a gravitas-y actor. Yeah.
Ooh, gravitas-y.
Merriam-Webster can add that to the dictionary. But off-screen is the sweetest guy you'll ever meet. Because on-screen he's very scary or intense, but off-screen he's a great listener. He loves Sting and Billy Joel, and he's like extremely intelligent and like politically minded. He's great. Yeah.
Sometimes he'll, right after a take where he said something very intense, and everyone in the room is kind of like devastated from it. Like we'll cut, and then he'll say, "Was that okay?" Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that was good.
How did you go about assembling the cast outside of you guys, like Lance and some of the other people that are in the show?
Well, we wrote some people into it. I mean, we tried to, and in this, we're in the LA comedy scene. That's where we started comedy, and we have a lot of friends that are very talented. So we wrote some people into the show. Lance was just sort of first idea, was our first choice. Like, I don't think we'll actually get him, but he then said yes. And Adam Lustig is in the LA comedy scene. He plays John. He's just a genius actor. We tried to get people, there were a combination of some of the most talented people we knew in comedy that hadn't necessarily gotten famous yet, and also just great dramatic actors. Because I do think there's something to casting dramatic actors in comedic roles that is way advantageous because they know what they're doing. If you give them silly stuff to say, they'll sell it much more. I always think about the movie Airplane, which people think of as the silliest movie ever, but they had Leslie Nielsen, who was a dramatic actor, and he played it straight and is so funny. So we're trying to do a similar thing with that, with like Ann Dudek or Lance Reddick, is get these incredible actors and make them say dumb stuff. And then otherwise get like the best comedians around. Like Aparna's just funnier than all of us.
An absolute genius, and we're lucky to work with her. She came on at the very last minute. Like, I think that her contract was signed the Friday before we started shooting, and we did not have a backup. If that fell through, we were in a lot of trouble. I don't know if you knew that.
Like, shit, I should have asked for more money if I did that.
Yeah, you could have made so much more money. But yeah, the goal basically for the three of us was to cast people more talented than we are, and so I think we did that. Yeah.
How long have you guys been making videos together?
6 years or so.
So.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
Well, we started doing stand-up together 7.5 years ago in Los Angeles. The first video Pat and I made together was a video called Idiot Fencing. I got drunk one night and ordered $250 worth of fencing equipment off of fencing.net. Great website, by the way. Highly recommend it. And
.net?
It's a .net,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. .gov.
Yeah, .gov, fencing.gov. And I was like, well, I got to do something with this. So I just, my friend Dave Ross and I was like, let's just film us fighting each other. We have never fenced before in our lives, and so we just filmed it in slow motion.
And it ended with you on the ground punching each other with your fists.
Yeah, the fencing went away quickly, and then we just were fighting each other with these big masks on, and then we set it to music. It went viral, not to brag again, not to come at you with that. But it's really funny. It's called Idiot Fencing. You can watch it. That was the first video that Pat directed with Dave and I in it. Yeah.
And Pat, what was it like going from, sort of directing these videos with these guys to directing a show and directing every episode?
It was, in some ways it was easier because there were a lot of people who are great at their job to help me, as opposed to me holding a boom mic and trying to operate the camera at the same time, which I was doing for many years. But yeah, I think it was great to have this kind of history of making videos just in our apartments with these guys so that we could kind of just know that it can be fun and not forget that and just sort of stay kind of loose and comfortable while we had this kind of bigger infrastructure. And we had to, doing these funny scenes at 7 a.m. in the morning when we haven't slept in a week.
Yeah, a lot of Pat's job is we write something and it's really funny to us in that moment, so we put it in the script, and then like 2 months later we have to go shoot it in these crazy artificial circumstances with lights on us, and it's Pat's job to be like, remember why this was funny, and usually just feeds us the line and then we repeat to it exactly. Yeah.
Here's how you said it before.
You guys often change lines while you're shooting on set. If you find that the thing that you wrote 2 months ago or something isn't landing, do you try to rewrite a little bit at all?
We write perfectly, so that's not necessary. I don't know how other people write, but we do it perfectly.
Yeah, we only do one take too, so everything in the show is all we shot.
Yeah.
Well, I think we try to find things to make it feel more spontaneous or a little offbeat, or there's things that are that you wouldn't think to write in a script, and when you're shooting it though, you're in the space to come up with stuff to not make it all feel like you're just reading a script.
I think one time we decided I should be eating a yogurt, but it should be like comically big tub of yogurt.
Yeah.
Although I will say we actually debated that
A long time?
in the writer's room.
I fought for that for a really long time in the writer's room, that you should be eating a lot of yogurt.
We went back and forth.
Big into
the size of the yogurt was a compromise.
That was a huge fight between us.
I think if you hire incredible comedic talent, then if the writing is there, if you know the jokes are solid and it makes sense, then what comedic talent like Aparna or Baron Vaughn can bring to it, it can only add to it. There's an extra brain that is better than yours that can make something even funnier. So I think your job as the writer is to make sure it works, and then the job as the performer is to add something to it.
Yeah, and I think we're not so precious about the wording most of the time, but precious about the ideas in it. So someone like Aparna, who knows how her comedic voice and personality so well, we're definitely open to and want people to like add to it and change things along the way. And yeah, she did that.
Also, Pat is a taskmaster on set. He only yells. That's the only way. He was raised that way. That's how he communicates, is by yelling, and that's how he shows love.
I keep him in line.
Yeah.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question right here?
Hi. What was your favorite episode you filmed so far?
Well, they're all perfect, so it's hard to pick between them. I really like. There's an episode later in the season called The Long Meeting, which is an episode that takes place entirely in one meeting, and it just seems to go on endlessly, and people don't understand why they're still in the meeting, and it's very confusing and existential, and that's Fred Willard is in that episode, and he's an absolute genius and like so great in it. And yeah, I think that's.
I've seen it, but that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
As someone who's worked at a corporation, like those endless meetings where one person doesn't want to take responsibility for making a decision.
That's right.
So they just make everybody brainstorm forever.
That's
literally exactly what happened.
Exactly the plot.
So many of those meetings where you're like, just tell us what to do. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Let's talk big big
think?
picture
And you're like,
here.
oh, my life is passing me by.
Yeah.
I also liked filming that episode was my favorite because all I had to do was sit in a chair. And that's like, you don't understand how great that is. You're getting paid money to sit in a chair.
Yeah.
So because the thing is when you
Even though you have your own show, your motive is still
100%.
the least amount of work.
Well, sometimes when you think of a good idea that's really funny and involved, you're like, oh no, now I have to make that. Like I have to do all those things, but when you have to sit in a chair, it's wonderful.
Yeah, like
chairs are great.
In the
Underrated piece of furniture.
In the third episode, I get hit in the face with a basketball, and we wrote it. We're like, that's gonna be so funny. And then cut to me standing there like, oh, I now have to get hit in the face with a basketball, and it
Okay,
hurt.
action. Throw the basketball.
Yeah.
We gotta get
Okay,
it again.
do it again.
Yeah.
Next question.
Hello, friends. I come bearing great news. So as a millennial expert, I was doing a lot of research on millennials, and we're actually changing all this corporate stuff, like emotional intelligence, and now we have like corporate life balance. So my question for you is, you must agree that there is, like, we're changing the 9 to 5, the Mad Men era. What is your stance on it with us, like, self-actualizing, being like the biggest generation that's ever lived in our entrepreneurship? How do you see the future of corporate unfolding? And hopefully you're a little optimistic.
Are you a publicist for corporate America? It feels like
I know.
you're trying to convince us
I
of
do a lot of
something.
research on like
Bad
startups.
news for you about all of those things that you just brought up.
But we are actually changing like a lot of those things.
And again,
if you
you
look
said
at startups, well, me as a millennial.
Oh,
but if you
I
look
see,
at
okay.
startups, like this is, I mean, this definitely like spoke to me when I watched the trailer. I've
Yes.
been in those corporations.
Yeah.
But I mean, thank God, it's not like it's changing. So,
Yes.
do you believe that, and what is your take on the future?
I like the idea, first of all, that you introduced yourself as a millennial. So now I know that about you, and now we can have a real conversation.
Sponsored by Pepsi right here, by the way.
I think a lot of the show for us is a vehicle for our own ideas about what the world is and existential dread and a lot of that. And the corporation is sort of a vehicle for that. So I think a lot of the corporate satire will apply to maybe an older version of it or things that are very wrong with corporations. And I think there are always going to be movements to make it better, but I don't trust those movements and I don't think that they will succeed.
Corporations are still filled by people, and people are dumb and bad. And I'm sorry, I know you wanted me to be positive. I'm a Gen X. No, I'm 83. I'm in 1983. I'm right on the corner. I think 83 is the first year of a millennial. So I'm a millennial, which is why I really get you. I think that it's always corporations. I think one thing our show wants to talk about is how corporations, in an attempt to get better, is really just an attempt to make more money. And I'd love to think that corporations want to help people, but in the end, I think they just want more money because money is great.
Yeah, they would only help people if that would end up getting them more money.
Right, if you think that not working 9 to 5 doesn't mean you're not going to be working all the time and answering emails while you're trying to change diapers at 8 o'clock at night and have a family, you're wrong. I mean, they're just sort of changing the landscape so that they can make as much money as possible with the least amount of people as possible, with the least amount of health care provided as possible. Sorry.
Yeah, they're like viruses. Like they're just getting smarter and more
Exactly.
shiny, but they're still trying to kill you.
Yeah. And I think, too, that it's like the reason you get paid to do a job is because nobody else would do that job otherwise. Jobs suck inherently most of the time. And so maybe we're being too negative. You know what? I believe in change, and I think things are going to change. And
I think it's looking up.
Better. Yeah.
Millennials are changing capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't. Next question.
Yeah.
Hi. So I was wondering, since you all play people in these occupations in the corporate office, if you're inside a scenario, would you where you work inside a corporate office, would you be the same position as your characters, or where would you like to be working in?
I would get fired immediately.
Yeah. Jake
That's
is not
why I
meant
do
for this
comedy,
world.
'cause I
Yeah.
can't be quiet about my real feelings, and no one wants honesty, except in comedy. I think comedy, just sort of to pivot, is a great place where your failings become the thing that really helps you the most. So I'm loud. I have opinions that aren't good. That helps me in comedy, but in a
like
corporate
your opinion
office.
about 3 billboards. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, we talked about 3 Billboards. Bad movie. I will gladly derail this to trash that movie.
But
I
if
just want
Jake,
you to
if
know.
Jake had to work in the corporate world, he would be dead by now.
I'd be dead. Yeah, they would have shot
dead
me
on the street. I think I would probably be about where my character is, where I would have moments of motivation, but largely I worked in that world and I just couldn't get myself to care about it, and so I would be living kind of a weird, dumb life if I worked in the corporate world.
Yeah, I think I would work in HR because it feels like the most close to like caring about people, maybe. But then I feel like I would get drained and die. So I guess we'd all be dead.
We'd all be dead.
Eat so much yogurt.
HR works for management. They don't care about.
Yeah, they don't care about people.
Yeah.
Guys, I love the show. I love that it just spawned this conversation about capitalism and hating corporations.
I think we upset
it premieres.
the millennial.
Right. They're going to change everything. I'm a millennial. We're going to change everything.
Yeah, that's right.
It premieres on Comedy Central. It was like Wednesday, January 17th, right? What time?
That's right. 10 p.m.
10 p.m. It's a great show. Everyone, watch it. Corporate Comedy Central. Give them a round of applause, everybody.